How to Navigate Defense in China. 9 students labeled as traitors for hosting a book club, while Old Jin lost his law license for defending the water tragedy. Thus, they decided to recruit young, innocent lawyers. A hopeful guy showed up with gifts. However, clueless about the situation, he came to beg Old Jin for talent for his new tax firm. He promised to fund Old Jin's revival of his law license, but Old Jin surprisingly turned him down. Rejected, he left empty-handed, realizing things were more complicated after passing a restaurant. The restaurant owner closed for over a month to search for her son, realizing the gravity. Back at the office, he asked his assistant to use police connections to find Saoi. However, an old police friend advised the assistant to stay away, as the president's team oversaw this case, and meddling could mean jail. Meanwhile, Old Jin suddenly had a change of heart and hoped he could help with a case regarding national security law, but he claimed he recently took on a huge tax case and had no time to spare. However, once he saw the news, he realized this national security case could be linked to the explosive Axon incident, or later he found Saoi, the owner's son, might be involved and confirmed it at work the next day. The helpless restaurant owner hurried over for help. She had received a notice that Saoi was about to be tried in Busan Detention Center. With nowhere to turn, she implored Yushio for help. "Can't you just help me one more time? They'll wait at your house until I die before asking for help." But Yushio insisted he had an urgent matter and could be found later, which she misconstrued as him venting his foot. She apologized for kicking him out, unaware he had an important meeting. The other party, a top 10 construction firm nationwide, invited Yushio to resolve a tax dispute. If he resolved it smoothly, Yushio seemed unfazed, sporting an indifferent look. His thoughts were on Saoi, so after the meeting, he rushed with cash to meet his promise. After several hurdles, he finally found the address marked on the paper but discovered the owner had vanished, waiting until sunset without luck. After a whole day of waiting, he finally saw the exhausted owner return. The next day, they went to the detention center for a visit but were quickly turned down. Thus, Yushio naturally tapped into his lawyer instincts, sternly warning them that banning visitations was illegal. However, the operator dialed the prosecutor then, and upon learning it was a tax lawyer, promptly released them. Saoi, having been locked up for over 2 months, seemed completely broken mentally. As Yushio called out, he started rambling incoherently. It wasn't until he locked eyes with his mother that he started to regain some sanity. Just as they embraced, his mother noticed his back was covered in injuries. Meanwhile, the guard interrupted, not allowing them to continue the visit, and dragged Saoi back to that dark cell, leaving Yushio feeling their worth. So he rushed to Old Jin's office to investigate, poring over forbidden books all night. The endless night made the lights seem even more glaring. At that moment, he felt as if he was back to his studious days, but this time his mindset had quietly shifted. After grasping the mundane content of the books, he went to Old Jin to file a complaint. Old Jin advised him to think it over carefully and not make emotional decisions, to which Yushio countered, "Then why did you impulsively rope me in last time? Once decided, be sure to join and help me find a suitable defense." "I agree." "Think him insulting you?" "Am not. What I mean is, I want to be the defense attorney." Back home, he gazed at his sleeping wife and child, filled with doubt, fearing his choice would drag them into a bottomless pit. In the afternoon, he arrived at the court to kick off the trial, only to bump into classmate journalist Awkward. The reporter still held a prejudice against Yushio, assuming he just wanted to cash in on fame. Little did they know how high-profile this case was. It seemed the outcome was already sealed in this trial intertwined with fate. 9 youths were led into the courtroom slowly, and their relatives wept openly. The scene was heart-wrenching. As the judge announced the trial's start, Yushio immediately invoked Article 280 of the Criminal Procedure Law. If only it were that easy. Now it's about lifting the charges and discounts. National security law, I'm ready to fight the legal battle. The trial hadn't even commenced, yet the defendants were already convicted. What an astonishing nosedive. Who would have thought a tax lawyer would have such flair that it left the judge and audience speechless? Even if his sharp words secured a sliver of rights for the 9 youths, the trial's atmosphere remained bleak. The prosecution prepared kids' handwritten confessions, faithfully recording their alleged crimes. Thus, the judge accepted the confessions as evidence, and Yeshua knew he had to prove coercion to turn the tide. However, the veteran lawyer was quite displeased with his courtroom antics, as defending under national security law was all about sentencing battles, not yet. Yeshua stood by his opinion, insisting if innocent should fight for a not guilty verdict, while his assistant urged him not to tread into dangerous waters. Using company contracts like that would be foolish, yet Yeshua resolutely held his ground. He also achieved a transformation from theory to practice. The next day in court, the prosecution insisted the students read forbidden books. Officials said these books would be strictly monitored and Bora severely punished, yet they were ready. He presented a British embassy document stating the authors were diplomats who only discussed history, no politics. He also produced 12 books labeled as forbidden, which he had effortlessly bought that morning in the book market. These books were even recommended as award books at Seoul University. Clearly, no one could dispute that. Alright, that's all for today's story. If you found it interesting, make sure to subscribe to my channel.